Off you go.
I used to live in a trailer with 2 ponies. Sorry, I don't know what happened.
Ponies in a trailer. I once lived. A man up on a hill in the Ozarks. With the ponies on the hill.
I really don't feel bad. I don't know that song. So you can be happy in a van down by the river and be just fine. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Entrepreneurial Family Man Podcast. I am Chris Niemeyer, here with my good friends Christopher McCluskey, Michael McGreevy, and Jamie Slingerland. We are just 4 guys who are crazy about our wives, we love our kids, and we want to kill it in business. And this podcast is all about those domains, being intentional and purposeful. And today we want to talk about and shed some light on the fact why we even order it that way. Today's episode is Money is Not a Real Gauge of Wealth. What and how do you measure your wealth? And this idea and this topic came up because, unfortunately, there's a pretty tragic story going on in the news right now about the richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos. Is he really the richest man? Michael, as we talk about that in the context of this guy who's seemingly got all the wealth in the world, what does that story just bring up inside you?
It tells me that money isn't the only thing that makes you wealthy. And man, do we ever believe that here. I mean, that's why we're here, right? Because we've seen what true richness is, or we at least have caught a glimpse of it. And that is in having a marriage that we're working on together and that we enjoy. It's about spending time with our kids and creating experiences that deepen our relationships, allow us to share these joyful times together. Without those relationships, those most important relationships, man, I feel pretty poor, pretty starving. Now, if I'm honest, sometimes I'll say, well, if I was Jeff Bezos and I had all that money, I would still invest in my relationships at the same time and have both.
I feel wealthy hanging out with you guys because we're going after the same types of wealth.
Financial wealth is definitely a means to lots of other kinds of wealth, but I think we're definitely challenging the notion that Jeff Bezos, God bless him, is the wealthiest man in the world. He is far from the wealthiest man in the world. I can recall my kids coming to me when we were living in the single-wide mobile home trailer out here on the farm because we had sold our beautiful 4-bedroom apartment in a subdivided neighborhood with the pool under the bird cage down there in Florida. And we had come up here tightening the belt, living on a shoestring budget. And the kids said, "Daddy, are we rich?" And the question right back was, well, what does rich mean? And that's really the conversation we're having here today. What do we mean by rich? What do we mean by wealth as men?
Jamie, you looked up the definition of wealth. What does the definition of wealth say?
It said the accumulation of valuable possessions or money.
The accumulation of valuable possessions or money. So what are some of those valuable things, or maybe we can insert people in your life?
Oh my gosh. I just think of the tagline that we have here at EFM. We're crazy about our wives. We love our kids. And we want to kill it in business. I like the order of those. If we lost everything, all our possessions, if our marriage is thriving, then we could start over in a heartbeat because we have the resources and the accumulation of wealth in that relationship. There's so much value for me in just knowing what would happen if things went really bad financially, because we could pull ourselves out of anything. And I think the same is true. I'm looking at you guys here on the screen. I know if Chris and Rachel or Mike and Lydia got wiped out financially, that they would come back and rebuild from the ashes something just as good or even better from what they've learned because they have each other. They're together. That relationship is way more valuable than $1 million to me because you can lose $1 million and just come back and make it up.
Yep.
We have proven that out over and over here again, not intentionally, but in living life as long as we have. Rachel, I've been married another month and a half. It'll be 33 years. I got to keep track of that.
Yeah,
33 years. And during those 3+ decades together, we've had some real rags to riches kind of stuff. And at the times that it's been really down, we've been upside down, putting groceries on credit cards and digging a deep financial hole. We, at one point, one of many different points, we were 15,000 in the hole and then paid all that off and got to the plus. And then we went back into the hole for I forget how much and then to the plus. And then I got so sick and we went over $100,000 into the hole and we came back from that. So the financial wealth, that's been all over the map. But the relational wealth and the spiritual wealth, the life experiences wealth, the wealth of time that's been shared together, which you can never get back. I can always get back money. Can't get back time. I can't get back experiences. Can't get back seasons that were there when the children were certain ages, because they'll never be those ages again. We have been ridiculously wealthy throughout all of those years, no matter what the pocketbook said at the time or the checkbook.
Man, Chris, it's been so cool to hear so many stories of how you've lived that out and the roller coaster ride you've been on and not being willing to give up when it comes to relational debt. You're willing to go in the hole financially if you need to, but never when it comes to your family. And that's inspiring to hear. And Jamie, I'm thinking about you too. You and Ruthie doing this podcast, I think, is so awesome together, because that's not made possible unless you guys are willing to slug it out together, work together, getting out of debt. We know your story, and I think everybody knows your story here.
What podcast are you talking about?
Free.
Is this like a plug for my podcast? Yeah, I love it.
Our sponsor.
What's the name of it again? I can't remember.
We're always talking about professional Christian coaching today, but we never talk about my podcast. So I'm
Brought to you by Freedom Life Journey.
Freedom Life Journey? Was that the name? Freedom Life Journey.
Oh, come on, guys.
Freelance to Freedom? What was it?
That's Benny Progressive.
I'm kidding.
We're just dropping all sorts of names here.
Yeah, but without you guys slugging it out and paying off $90K in debt and learning how to work together, invest in each other, and build that marriage relationship, you can't do cool things together like a podcast. I think about everyone who's married has been in an argument with their wife, hopefully, or you're just pretending there's nothing going on. But when I'm in an argument with Lydia, like, I can't even focus on anything that I need to do on my own, let alone do something together with her. And if your marriage is in a place where you haven't made that investment and you want to do something together, forget about it. It's off the table. Not going to happen. And that's part of the reason why we work so hard on a relationship, because we want to share life together and do cool things together.
Yeah, I love that example, Michael, that you guys are all of us are working on these things to accumulate these measures of wealth that don't have commas and zeros. They're people in our lives with the soul that we've been entrusted with. And we get to do life and build on that accumulation of these relationship points that it helps us with those other things. Michael, you're an example now. The stuff that you're doing with Lydia on video out in front of all these people now with this awesome adventure, remodeling and flipping this house, you couldn't do that if the relationship was bankrupt.
Yeah, that's right. And I just remember when we were in San Diego together too, when Alicia brought all the kids out to come visit you. And you're like, guys, I think I'm going to surprise her. I'm going to meet her for lunch and she has no idea I'm going to be there. I'm going to show up and I can't wait to see my kids. First of all, she flew all the kids out to see you at the end of a conference, and then you're surprising her before you even were supposed to meet. I mean, that is relational richness. You guys want to be together and you want to do cool things together and bring the family along. And that's what we're talking about here, is richness that causes us to act on each other's behalf and do that joyfully.
It's kingdom living. I mean, we're all Christians here, and we speak frequently about our faith and the importance that speaks into our lives and the values we hold. But this is kingdom living. This is what we're called to. That's the heaven here and now, not just the heaven that's in the thereafter when we leave this life, but the heaven here and now. I couldn't help thinking immediately of the scripture verse. We're all familiar with it from Matthew, where Jesus is speaking about heaven. He says the kingdom of heaven is like treasure, there's wealth, hidden in a field. When a man found it, what? The treasure that is the kingdom life. He hid it, and then in his joy went out and sold all that he had. He used his financial wealth and bought that field. Financial wealth can be a means of securing those things that really matter. But I mean, if we go back to Jamie, your definition that you gave us there from Google, I think we can just kind of riff off of that and say the kind of wealth we're talking about here, the kingdom living of that treasure that was hid in the field, and we're willing to sell everything to go and to claim that. It's an abundance of intentional living that's in integrity with our highest values. Mm-hmm. Things that we really value the most in life and the vision that creates for our life. When we're living in integrity with that, with our wives and with our kids especially, and then in stewarding our health, because there's a wealth of health or lack thereof, right? A poverty of health and all. That's where that kingdom living is. That's where true riches lie.
Yeah, I know one of our values is flexibility. I know I'll add another one into that, variety. I don't like doing the same thing every day. And that's why in any given week, one day I'll do a full day of coaching for my office here, and then I'll be gutting a bathroom the next day. Those are central values for me. And I still have dirt under my fingernails, and I have coaching calls, or earlier today I had coaching calls. So it's like just how I want to live, and it's how I'm most alive and how I have more to give to my family and my marriage. So I've really grabbed onto that value, or that value for myself. That sounded very selfish.
No, this is all great. I mean, this is a good discussion point of just how and what are you prioritizing. If we understand that, EFM is split into these domains, and we know that the business is down in there at the third, but you both brought up some good points there, Chris. Health. Variety.
Yeah, right.
These things that bring us life and joy. I know we're all into experiences and travel. And so I would, like you just said, Michael, I would give up a more mundane schedule where I was attached to my phone or desk all the time. I would give sums of money to not have that in order to have the type of lifestyle that I want.
Yeah, I would cut my salary in half and just live on less rather than go get a job and be gone away from my family for 50 or 60 hours a week.
I want to give another example. One of our mastermind members, Jason Pearl, has recognized that his wife is really connected to her church and ministry, and she's into it. And he's made a huge investment in his marriage. And now he's even leading a high school ministry at the same church that his wife works at. And that has offered so much value to their relationship and so much richness that they get to serve together and share in that. We see updates from him all the time, man. He is on fire. Jason, you're a great example of EFM. Keep up the good work, man.
Yeah, that's a great shout out. He's doing some awesome work there. And again, he's being intentional with this area of his life that's so much more important than going and chasing after clients. Chris, I want to turn it back to you for a minute. You talked about this idea of health, and you're one to talk about this because you've seen highs and lows in this, and getting to see you healthy and doing stuff that's active and vibrant with your kids and their involvement. I mean, that speaks volumes to the amount of energy, interest, love that you're pouring into them because you prioritize them.
Yeah, health is definitely one of the things that I count as a great measure of wealth, even though I don't have as much health as I could wish for. Sometimes our health is taken away from us, as it was in my case with Lyme disease. It wasn't anything that I invited or did or was poor choice on my part. It was taken away. But other times, health is taken away because we just neglect our bodies. We don't take good care of ourselves. We run ourselves ragged and eat all kinds of junk. And then it's like squandering wealth. You had health and you let it be taken away from you. But many times, our physical health is just threatened from the outside. Doing everything that's within our strength, our ability to ensure a great measure of health wealth is a real responsibility for any man. we're all saying stuff that at one level, any man would nod their head to and go, yeah, me too. I'd do without a lot of things in order to have that. But there's another level that goes, yeah, but reality check. It takes a whole lot of money to do all this kind of stuff. And remember when we were looking at moving to Florida, they talked about sun dollars, the value of being near the sun. And I was like, well, can you take those sun dollars to Kroger's? I don't think so. It takes money to do things. But when we moved here to the farm, you guys know, we were living in the trailer on a shoestring budget, had no money for anything, theoretically. And the kids had gotten a little pony. And I quickly found out, you can't do much with one pony except walk it around the yard. You need a second horse or pony for dad or mom to go riding on trails and all. And we went out and paid $700 for an older mare, but she was wonderful, a Tennessee Walker. People would look at that and go, that was a crazy expenditure of money that you didn't have to spend on that. And I would say, no, it depends on what you mean by wealth. We didn't have financial wealth to spend, but the wealth we got from those horse rides, we named that horse Hyacinth because mom raised we kids with a little broken piece of poetry that said, if I had but 2 pence, with one I would buy bread, and with the other I would buy hyacinth, which is a flower. A crazy thing. Like, why would you buy a flower? Because it would feed my soul. Hyacinth fed our soul. That there are so many things that we're talking about today that are soul feeding, and that's where we're saying real wealth lies. I think we're saying seriously, not just pie in the sky. We are willing to let go of a whole lot of other financial things in order to have those greater measures of wealth.
Okay, now we're bordering on the line of, was that irresponsible? And I think what I'm thinking is it's irresponsible to not feed your soul. Because if you're not feeding your soul, if you're not helping feed the soul of your wife, your kids, my goodness, what do you have?
Right.
That's so true. And taking the money analogy and some lingo, what you're talking about really is this whole idea of dollar cost averaging your wealth. Whether in high or low, you are going to invest in the things that feed your soul. In that case, maybe you didn't have all the money, but you bought Hyacinth because doggone it, this is going to make us happy. And you wanted to pour into those people in your life that you love so much. It's just this idea that in the highs and lows, Jamie, you mentioned it earlier, there's going to be a wild ride sometimes in entrepreneurship. And maybe you do get to take an awesome trip one year and the next year you're camping down the street, but it doesn't matter about the trip. It's the people, it's the time and the experience that you get to do together.
McCluskey, when you were living in that trailer with the 2 ponies.
Yeah, they weren't in the trailer, but yes, go ahead.
I'm just thinking about your kids. They never felt impoverished ever. They were like, we had horses.
And here's the other piece of that story. Here I sit now talking about it all these years later. Hyacinth is gone. She died. Dusty died. Patches died. Those horses and ponies, that season's gone. My kids are grown. The kids that rode those horses and ponies through these woods with us here, they've moved out. Time moves on, but nobody can take away from us and them the wealth that they have from those years of experiences shared, of memories that have filled them up and their souls up. Every expenditure of one kind or another is going to gain you something and it's going to cost you something. We're all just saying that if I'm going to be in debt somewhere, I would actually choose financial debt over a whole lot of other debts that you can never go back in time and make up for.
And we want to interrupt this broadcast to share with you a Merle Haggard song called 2 Ponies in a Trailer. I used to live in a trailer with 2 ponies. Sorry, I don't know what happened.
Ponies in a trailer, I once lived. A man up on a hill in the Ozarks, motherfucker with the ponies on the hill. So, what about you?
What about you? What are your gauges of wealth? Money and marriage and fatherhood. What are you investing in and how? If you were to look at your calendar, your bank account, what you spend your time on, How do you measure those things? How would other people looking in say you're measuring the things that really matter to you?
Thank you for listening to the Entrepreneurial Family Man Podcast. Visit efmlife.com to connect with us and others like you who are pursuing success in enterprise, family, and marriage.